everyone. I am Bhumi from InteriMarket, the end-to-end solution for total contingent workforces and businesses. Today I'm here with brilliant Steve, who is also the author of Portfolio Careers, one of my favorite books. And I would love for Steve to give a quick introduction, please.
All right, thanks, Bhumi. Well, a little bit about myself to kick off with. My background was actually in the travel industry. I spent 30 years or so in the travel industry, working for a number of key organisations such as British Airways, Thomas Cook, and Going Places, who rather ironically got bought out by Air Tours, which then got bought out by Thomas Cook. But I took redundancy over 16 years ago now, and I forged a completely different path. I fell in love with career and personal development, and basically that's been my passion now for the last 16 years or so. I set up my own consultancy, which originally was an HR consultancy and has gradually morphed into a career and people development consultancy.
Okay.
But within that, I decided I wanted to achieve a lifetime's ambition, and that was to become an author. And as you rightly say, I'm now an internationally acclaimed author of 3 books and 2 audio books. So I was told that I needed a personal brand separate from my company, SMP Solutions. So having done quite a bit of research with a number of my clients and key contacts, the tagline, if you like, that came up, which most people felt was absolutely spot on, was the career catalyst.
Excellent.
Because people basically said that what I do is I act as the catalyst for their career change, transition, or general career development in order to land their dream job. And obviously for that I'm very proud.
Excellent. And also, just so you guys know, we're actually filming this outside in the lovely Royal Festival Hall. So if you are hearing some noises, that's definitely not us shaking things up just yet. And so, just to carry on the conversation, Steve, I wanted to talk about your concept of portfolio careers. You've, of course, researched this topic and written about it a couple of years ago, when even today, most people in the sector, or even generally, are sort of coming to terms with the idea of the future of work and are not fully convinced that our careers are going to take a very different turn or will look very different in the next 5 to 10 years. So, what convinced you ahead of the curve to think that this was the future of work?
Yeah, I mean, great question, Bhumi. I mean, I first came across the portfolio career concept in my transition about 17 years ago, when I came across the work of Charles Handy, who coined the phrase the portfolio life. And he was talking about stuff even back then which the guy was amazing. He must have had some sort of crystal ball. But there's a quote which is uppermost in my mind, Bhumi, which to this day, and I can feel it already, even before I said it, every time I say this, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And it's from the late great management consultant Peter Drucker, who you're no doubt aware of his work. And he coined the fantastic phrase. He said that organisations or corporations, once built to last like pyramids, are now more like tents. You can't design your life around a temporary structure. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And what he was basically saying is that even all those years ago, and we're talking 20 odd years ago now, that people need to take control of their careers. They need to take responsibility for their careers. They can't, moving forward, they have to think differently.
Right.
And along with the work of Charles Handy, the view was that there are other ways to earn living. You don't just have to focus on the traditional 9 to 5 or whatever you want to call it, and doing one type of work. And another thing which Charles Handy said in his book The Age of Unreason, which again hugely resonated with me, he basically was challenging convention in terms of thinking, well, why should it be that the working week is 40 hours over 5 days? I mean, who says that? Why does it have to be that?
Yeah.
Why can your working week, and doing one thing, why can your working week not be made up of working in the way you want, when you want, doing the type of work you want, and a variety? And the key C word, choice. You having the choice.
Absolutely. And this was all you say 20 to 30 years ago?
I believe The Age of Unreason was probably now 25, 26 years ago, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And so I first heard about this about 16, 17 years ago during my transition. So even then I started, it really excited me. I'm thinking, wow, I've left the corporate world. I'm not sure the direction I'm going in, but yeah, maybe I don't have to do one thing anymore. And equally, I don't have to work in a traditional fashion across a 40-hour week.
Absolutely.
So I've embraced that ever since, and the book is my third book, and it's been a while in the making, because always at the back of my mind I had this book in my head, and it's sort of evolved. But I think it's fantastic that people all around the globe, it's resonated with them, and lots of media, and had lots of radio and podcast interviews about it, and it's basically challenging people's thinking about the need to have a traditional job. And the other side to it, Bhumi, which is so important, and people of all ages now, this is the other thing. When I first came across the portfolio career, the view was, this is the 40, 50 year age plus group of people who are sort of winding down in their careers. But nowadays the portfolio career concept is something that is embraced by everybody from college and university leavers to people in their 60s and even more so.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fantastic.
And I agree completely. I'm a huge fan of portfolio careers and consulting and interiming, purely because since I graduated, as you know, in the last decade, that's all I've done is contracted, consulted, shorter term projects, and really learned very, very quickly. So as key part to that, this is where InteriMarket came in play for me, because the technology out there today, there is so much of it, yet it does not plug in the key gaps for enterprises and these consultants and interims and people who believe in portfolio careers, which, like you say now, are all different ages.
Yeah.
It's no longer just the experienced folks of 20, 30 years that go in as exec interims. And so I wanted to touch upon a very, very key question, which I found in a decade of working as a contractor, is that I had to always keep on reskilling myself.
Yeah.
People used to say traditionally that only IT careers need to be, reskilled and updated. But actually I was in HR, recruitment, I've done systems projects and change projects, and I've always had to keep on reskilling.
Yeah.
So I see, having a portfolio career as key to also having a skill of ongoing learning and development. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I couldn't agree more, Bhumi, and one of the things I've championed for many years, and I'm a firm believer in it, is that your personal development is equally, if not more important than your professional development. So, and by personal development, I mean developing your mind and your life skills, if you like, as opposed to your professional skills. But when you do the two, then you get a very powerful combination, and it's all about keeping ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've also spoken a lot about and written about over the years is I've said the career ladder is dead. So the thought that everything is you're constantly moving up the ladder, what with flatter management structures and organisational structures nowadays, that's not necessarily the way for everyone to go. I talk about the career roller coaster instead. So it could be, up and down and sideways and twists and turns and all sorts of things. And for a lot of people, they will reskill within an organisation by maybe taking a sideways move
Yeah.
or even a backwards move, which historically would have been.
So, sorry about that, a brief glitch, as you would expect in technology. And so Steve was touching upon the career changes and the career moves, especially when you were just talking at the point there of how individuals go sideways and backwards, etc.
Yeah, especially as you well know, Bhumi, virtually all work nowadays is a project. So people who get involved in different types of projects, they're actually helping to future-proof their careers, and obviously for people who come into interim work, then it's essential. But you know, if I take my own career as an example, I moved out of the sort of mainstream travel area, and I was within my organisation, if you like, internally headhunted to head up some projects, and I got involved in HR by accident rather than design. And so I suddenly started developing new skills and expertise in different strands of HR, which if you told me that a few years before, I would never have believed it in a million years. And I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of people, which is great. So that rather than just constantly thinking I'm an X, and that's the other thing, of course, so many people, if you like, value themselves by their job title.
Right.
I mean, that's something, again, that I think is a dying breed.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to stretch that thinking, and this, again, a lot of this is about mindset, having what I call a growth mindset, if you like, an open, opportunistic mindset, as opposed to that fixed type of mindset that people used to have. One job, one career, one type of organisation. I mean, all that's obviously gone out the window now. So it's this constant evolution. And my belief is that people who are flexible and adaptable to change, and who seek out opportunities and also can spot the gaps, they're the ones that are going to thrive in the future.
Absolutely.
And you know, these are real entrepreneurial tendencies as well. And in the Portfolio Careers book, one of the case studies, he uses the quote that entrepreneurship is the new retirement plan, which I think is a fabulous way of looking at things. And I think that so many people have a hang up about that term entrepreneur. I think they have this vision of you know, the likes of Alan Sugar and Donald Trump and The Apprentice, whereas entrepreneurial skills are something that a huge percentage of people have, and I find this coaching with my professional executive clients. You can tease it out of them. They don't actually realise that maybe they have got some great skills and attributes which lend themselves to doing things they'd never thought about. And of course, if you want that variety and you want that choice and the flexibility and freedom, if you like, that's again where the portfolio career concept comes into play. And I think another big shift in the world of work, again, regardless of the age group, is that so many people are now what I call lifestyle focused.
Right, absolutely.
And it's not just about work for work's sake. It's about doing work they love, which is meaningful, it's got some sort of purpose, but actually makes them happy and is part of the bigger whole, if you like, in terms of achieving or fulfilling life, or what I call a blended working lifestyle. You know, people talk about work-life balance, but how many people really have total balance in their working lives? So I talk about a blended working lifestyle because it's whatever you want it to be. You know, you want more work than life, and some people want more life than work.
Absolutely.
So I think things are changing massively in that respect.
I agree. And I think just to close on that note, if I could also add that I do hear a lot of permanent colleagues, especially I'm a millennial, so my generation going, I want to be contracting in 5 years' time, so I'm going to up and change my career and start freelancing. And I say, no, don't do that. Don't make any sudden shift or change. purely because there are practical reasons of having permanent job as well at the moment. And if you have practical reasons, even if there are things that you hate to do in your job, it's the same even in a contract or a freelance career. So, always speak to experts. And thank you, Steve, so much for your wonderful time, and it was wonderful to chat to you. What I would do is I will share all the links for Steve's books and his profile and his website to the description of this video, so you can feel free to get in touch with him. And thank you so much for your time, you guys. Take care.